Hello everyone, straight from Brazil to the world, you are on the Boosted Man channel. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos.
Have you ever wondered why those three words, I love you, can carry so much weight when they come from a woman's mouth? Deep down, you know it isn't just a simple declaration. It's as if something hidden, invisible, is waiting to be deciphered. For many men, hearing it feels like the ultimate victory. But for others, it's the beginning of an even deeper confusion. Is it genuine love, or just a reflection of her shadows? The problem is that most men take those words at face value. They believe I love you always means exactly what it seems: commitment, desire, surrender. But what if in reality, it's often a distorted mirror? What if what she's really saying isn't about you at all, but about the insecurity she's desperate to soothe? This is where so many men fall. The man who hears I love you and gives away his soul without question is often surrendering not to love, but to neediness disguised as devotion. Carl Jung once said that what we don't understand in ourselves shows up in our relationships with others. Applied to love, this means that I love you often comes loaded with unconscious intentions: fear of abandonment, desire for control, or the need to test your worth. And when you don't see it, you end up playing a game that isn't yours, a game where both the board and the rules are hidden. This is where masculine pain begins. You thought you were being given a gift, but in truth, you were being placed in front of a silent test. You thought it was a sign of surrender, when often it was only the strategic move of someone afraid to lose ground. The gap between what you heard and what she meant is where confusion, dependency, and frustration are born. But there is a way out. It begins the moment you stop listening only to the words and start feeling the energy behind them. When you understand that I love you can be either a reflection of genuine desire or a trigger of unconscious manipulation, you take a different position. You stop reacting. You start seeing. And the man who sees clearly is not easily controlled. You must understand that these words are symbolic keys. They can open the door to true desire, or the gate to emotional imprisonment. Everything depends on how you respond, on how firmly you stand under the weight she places upon you. And that's exactly what we'll explore. In each chapter, you'll uncover the hidden meanings behind this seemingly simple phrase. You'll realize that what looked like a gesture of affection can also be a battlefield of invisible forces, where desire, fear, control, and surrender are entangled. More importantly, you'll learn how to position yourself as a man who doesn't get lost in the reflection, but who masters the silent game happening beneath the words. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what she says. What matters is how you hold yourself, the invisible weight behind her words. When a man hears a woman say, I love you, his first impulse is to believe he has finally reached a place of safety. It feels as if her heart has opened its doors and given him access to an intimate territory. But in reality, those words don't always mean what you think they do. Many times they carry an invisible weight. The attempt to fix you in place, to secure emotional territory, to hold on to something she feels might be slipping away. This is the point most men never see. I love you may not be born from overflowing desire, but from the anxiety of loss. And here lies the trap. You interpret as genuine love what is in fact only fear. By confusing the two, you surrender without realizing that the energy behind the declaration is not expansion, but contraction. Not freedom, but possession. Think about how many times, after hearing those words, you completely relaxed. You believed you were safe, that you no longer had to fight, that the game was won. That's the moment many men lose their power. Because by feeling too secure, you let go of the creative tension that sustains desire. She senses this unconsciously, and it is exactly then that her interest begins to fade. Psychology shows that words of affection are often used as mechanisms of emotional regulation. A woman may say, I love you, not because she is overflowing with passion, but because she feels you pulling away and wants to pull you back in. She may say it when she fears losing ground to another woman, or when she wants to test if you'll respond with the same intensity. Every time you react without questioning, without reading the real energy, you become more predictable. Jung spoke of symbols as living representations of the unconscious. In this sense, I love you is a loaded symbol, not just a phrase. At times, it's a symbol of surrender. At others, of possession. And at others still, of vulnerability. The man who fails to read this symbol clearly lives trapped in an illusion. He believes he's being loved, when in fact, he's being tied down by an invisible leash. That's why so many men fall into emotional dependence. They believe the phrase is a certificate of stability, when in truth it may only be a psychological rope meant to keep them from slipping away. And when they realize her actions don't match the weight of her words, frustration appears. But she said she loved me, so why did she act like that? The answer is simple, but painful. Because what she said wasn't necessarily about you. It was about her. About her need to feel safe, validated, connected. You thought it was love, but it was fear. You believed it was surrender, but it was self-preservation. This is the invisible weight you must learn to see. Because once you recognize it, something shifts inside you. You stop being a prisoner of words and start observing the movement of energy. And in that moment, you're no longer being led. You begin to lead. The mirror of subtle control. When a woman says, "I love you," it isn't always just an act of affection. Often, it's a mirror. A subtle reflection meant to see how much of yourself you will surrender. It's as if, in silence, she's asking, "How much of you is mine?" And the way you respond to those words defines for her the balance of power in the relationship. If you respond with total surrender, rushing to prove you feel the same, something shifts. The emotional scale tilts. She realizes she has conquered your soul without resistance, that she can access your emotions with a simple verbal command. In that instant, her desire may not grow. It may even shrink. Because the mystery dissolves. The territory was taken without effort. But if you hesitate, if you remain composed and don't melt immediately, the mirror reflects another image. To her, you become more enigmatic. The value isn't in the quick yes, but in the space you create. In that pause, she measures your strength, your solidity, your ability to remain whole without needing to be absorbed. It's as if she were testing whether your masculinity can withstand the invisible pressure of being loved without losing yourself. Relational psychology shows that in many bonds, love and power walk hand in hand. Words of affection can be used to reinforce dependency. "I love you" may be the key that opens your vulnerability, and from there, shapes your behavior. If you fall into this game without realizing it, you begin to live for her approval. You stop being the man who inspires desire and become the man who seeks permission. And here lies the subtlety. Control doesn't have to be explicit. There are no open manipulations, no threats. Only sweet words that sound like devotion but may, unconsciously, tie you to a position of constant response. She says, "I love you," and you feel you must prove the same. She creates the scene. You step into the role. But the man who understands this mirror acts differently. He knows he doesn't need to deny the feeling, but he also doesn't need to dissolve in it. He understands that love is not an emotional prison. It's a dance of forces. And in this dance, the man who gives too much, too soon, loses the rhythm. Think about it. This isn't about distrusting every declaration, but about perceiving the hidden energy. If she says, "I love you," to control the pace, you don't respond with submission, but with steadiness. You remain centered. Because when you hold your ground, something happens inside her. She realizes she can't simply take you completely. And it's in that limit that respect and desire grow. The mirror always reveals more about the one who looks than the one being looked at. And in this game, the man who doesn't lose himself in the reflection preserves the invisible strength that sustains attraction. The hidden test of desire. There are moments when "I love you" doesn't appear as a confession, but as a silent tool of observation. She's not simply declaring what she feels, she's testing how those words transform you. It's an emotional experiment. What happens to him when I say this? If, upon hearing it, you become anxious, needy, overly grateful, the test is lost. Because in that instant, you stop being the man who inspires desire and become the man who begs for continuity. She realizes that with 3 words, she managed to alter your entire posture, break your firmness, mold your energy, and nothing kills attraction faster than seeing someone collapse at the first sign of affection. But if, instead, you receive those words with calm, presence, and magnetism, the effect is different. She feels that your energy doesn't crumble under intensity, that you remain solid. It's not coldness, but steadiness. Not indifference, but balance. It's the man who accepts the declaration without being swallowed by it. That's the kind of response that silently increases desire. Because instead of being predictable, you become enigmatic. In the psychological dynamics of attraction, everything predictable fades. When she sees that a simple, "I love you," turns you into a dependent man, the intensity vanishes. But when she sees that her words don't control you, that they touch your surface without shaking your core, something else happens. A respect grows within her that fuels desire. Jung spoke of the unconscious as a force that projects symbols to test reality. "I love you," in these moments, can be exactly that. A symbol projected to observe your response. If you respond with immediate submission, her unconscious records, "He's mine. I don't need to fight for him anymore." If you respond with steady presence, the unconscious records something else. "He is whole, even when he gives himself. I must keep desiring him." The mistake most men make is believing that every "I love you" should be celebrated like a prize. But the real prize isn't hearing those words. The real prize is staying centered when they reach you. Because only then do you maintain the field of tension that sustains attraction. The test of desire is invisible but decisive. Fail it and you lose magnetism. Pass it and you become unforgettable. The risk of blind surrender. For many men, hearing "I love you" feels like crossing a portal. Suddenly, all doubts seem to vanish. You breathe in relief, as if you finally reached the safe territory of the relationship. But that's exactly where the danger lies. In blind surrender, in lowering all defenses as if the game were already won. Female desire doesn't thrive on absolute certainty, but on the invisible tension between presence and mystery. When you believe that love is a fortress where you can settle without effort, you kill the very energy that attracted her to you in the first place. Because when you give everything without reserve, you destroy the field of forces that sustains magnetism. It's like a king abdicating his crown to become a servant, believing that such submission would strengthen the bond. Psychologically, total surrender without awareness creates imbalance. She, often unconsciously, feels the game is over. The challenge disappears. The man who once represented strength, depth, and presence now becomes predictable, always available, always ready to prove his love. And in that absence of challenge, desire begins to dissolve. It's hard to admit, but what keeps the flame alive isn't absolute comfort. It's creative tension. Love isn't a prison. It's an energetic field. It isn't the sum of sweet promises, but the space where two poles continue to attract each other precisely because they aren't fully fused. The risk of blind surrender is that in trying to guarantee everything, you lose exactly what you wanted to preserve: her desire. Relationship neuroscience shows that excessive predictability reduces dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and pleasure. When everything is secured and without mystery, the mind stops feeling excitement. In the feminine field, this translates into sudden coldness, distance, or even sexual disinterest, not because she no longer feels something, but because the energy of the relationship lost its tension. The man who understands this acts differently. He knows he can love deeply without dissolving. He realizes surrender cannot be blind, but conscious. He gives, but remains whole. He shares, but doesn't abandon his grounded presence. He knows true love doesn't demand submission. It requires the ability to stay strong even in the moments of greatest intimacy. The difference is simple but transformative. A man who surrenders with awareness keeps the field alive. A man who surrenders blindly kills desire. The silence that speaks louder than the answer. When a woman looks into your eyes and says, "I love you," the natural impulse of almost every man is to respond immediately, to repeat the same words, to confirm, to seal the moment. But what few men understand is that the most powerful response isn't in echoing the phrase. It's in the space you create between what she says and what you do. That interval, silent, steady, charged with presence, has more impact than any rushed declaration. It's in that pause that you show you're not easily shaken, that you don't need to rush to prove your feelings. Silence isn't coldness, it's strength. It's proof that you don't dissolve in 3 words, but remain whole even in the face of intensity. She feels it. In the moment you don't rush, a subtle tension is born within her. What is he feeling? What is he going to say? That doubt, far from being negative, fuels desire. Because mystery is the invisible flame that keeps attraction alive. An immediate "I love you too" may sound sweet, but it dissolves the tension. A deep gaze, held in silence, creates an energy that words can never reproduce. In the psychology of attraction, this space works like an inverted mirror. The more you demonstrate emotional control, the deeper she feels the bond. Because what a woman perceives isn't just the words, but the way you hold them. Silence becomes proof of presence. It isn't emptiness, it's density. It isn't omission, it's magnetism. Men who are used to seeking validation can't stand this silence. They rush to fill the space with promises, with declarations, with repetition. But the man who understands energy knows that less can mean more. That the pause is often the real answer. That respect, desire, and admiration are born from the ability not to be predictable. At its core, "I love you" doesn't ask for an automatic confirmation. It asks for depth. And that depth isn't revealed only in words, but in presence. The right silence, sustained by a steady gaze, is worth more than 1,000 rehearsed lines. Because in that instant, she isn't thinking about what you said. She's feeling who you are. And that's what stays. At first, it seems simple. 3 sweet words, spoken in the heat of a moment. But now you know that "I love you" is much more than a declaration of affection. It's a symbolic portal, a psychological mirror, an invisible field of forces. For many men, this phrase becomes relief, a shortcut to safety. But for the awakened man, it's a sign to be read with depth. You've realized that these words don't always reflect genuine love. Many times they hide fear of loss, a desire for control, or silent tests of your energy. You've understood that the automatic reaction, blind surrender, the rush to reciprocate, the need to prove feelings, is exactly what erodes respect and desire. Love is not a comfortable prison. It's creative tension. It's not a contract of dependency, but a dance of 2 forces that meet without dissolving into each other. The man who understands this doesn't fear these words, but he doesn't get captured by them either. He receives them with presence. He reads beyond the surface. He responds not just with phrases, but with the invisible solidity of a man who remains whole. And that's where everything shifts. Because when you stop seeking guarantees in "I love you" and start sustaining your own energy, you become rare. You are no longer the man who reacts. You are the man who leads. You are no longer the man who seeks safety. You are the man who offers intensity. Deep down, what she desires most isn't hearing the phrase echoed back as a reflex. What she truly desires is to feel, in the silence between the words, that you are unshakable. And that's the secret that transforms the dynamic. When you no longer need to cling to "I love you," that's when she truly feels that she loves you.